Hey Hawks fans! The latest projection for the 2026 NFL Draft has just been released and is already generating heated debate around the Seattle Seahawks, because Mel Kiper Jr. is predicting a pick that will cause a lot of controversy for the team. I'll tell you everything in detail, so be sure to click the like button and comment below. Do you believe this season is ours? If so, write, "I believe." Now come with me. I'll keep you well informed. Mel Kiper Jr. predicts that the team will select Notre Dame running back Jadarian Price with the 32nd overall pick. This decision is causing controversy for the wrong reasons. Not because Price lacks talent, nor because he lacks NFL potential, but because of the position he is being projected to play. And this distinction is crucial when trying to build a roster the right way. Let's be very clear about something right out of the gate. Jadarian Price is not the problem here. When you dive into what he brings to the table, you're looking at a running back with excellent vision, someone who can make defenders miss in open space, and a player who consistently produced strong yardage numbers at Notre Dame. He runs with both power and elusiveness. He can break tackles, and even though he wasn't heavily utilized at times, partly because he shared the backfield with Jeremiah Love, he still showed enough to convince scouts he can succeed at the next level. There are limitations, sure. He's not considered an elite blocker, and his receiving ability out of the backfield isn't exactly a standout trait. But those aren't deal-breakers in today's NFL, especially when you consider how many successful backs have entered the league without being complete, polished products. The point is simple. Jadarian Price can play. He can contribute. He could even thrive in Seattle's system. But at pick 32, that's where everything starts to fall apart. Using a first-round selection on a running back in today's NFL is already a risky move unless you're talking about a truly generational prospect. And even then, teams are becoming more hesitant. The league has evolved to the point where running back production can often be replicated later in the draft, or even through low-cost free agency. That's exactly why this projection feels so off when you consider the Seahawks' current situation. Seattle has multiple needs that are simply more valuable at that stage of the draft. Edge rusher, quarterback depth, and even cornerback carry significantly more long-term impact than reaching for a running back when similar talent can be found later. And that's the key argument here. It's not about avoiding the position entirely. It's about understanding value. Because when you look deeper into this 2026 running back class, it's far from weak. In fact, there's a strong group of players projected to go in the second and third rounds who could deliver 90 to 95% of what Jadarian Price offers. Names like Mike Washington Jr., Jonah Coleman, Caleb Allen, Nicholas Singleton, and even Emmett Johnson have all shown flashes of being legitimate NFL contributors. And if that's the case, why burn your most valuable draft asset on a position where the drop-off isn't that steep? That's the strategic misfire being highlighted here. If Seattle can address a premium position at 32 and still land a highly productive running back in rounds 2 or 3, that's a win across the board. It's about maximizing resources, not just filling a need. And speaking of need, yes, running back is a concern. There's no denying that. But it's not a desperation scenario. Zach Charbonnet is currently viewed as RB1, although he may not be ready for the start of the season. Kenny McIntosh is still an intriguing option who hasn't had a real opportunity to showcase his explosiveness yet. Emmanuel Wilson and George Holani have both shown enough in their previous opportunities to at least deserve a legitimate shot at earning a bigger role. This is not a backfield devoid of talent. It's a group with question marks, yes, but also upside. And when you combine that with the depth available in the draft, it becomes even harder to justify spending pick 32 on a running back. Now, contrast that with other areas of the roster. Edge rusher is a premium position. Quarterback is always a long-term consideration. Cornerback depth can never be overlooked in a division loaded with passing threats. These are positions where first-round talent can make a real difference, not just immediately, but for years to come. There's also the John Schneider factor. The Seahawks general manager has built a reputation for being calculated, for understanding value, and for rarely forcing a pick that doesn't align with the bigger picture. There's even an expectation that Seattle could look to trade back from 32 to accumulate more draft capital, which would make even more sense given the depth at running back. And if a trade doesn't happen, then the pressure is even higher to make that pick count. You can't afford to miss. You can't afford to reach. And taking a running back in that spot, when comparable talent will still be available later, feels like exactly that kind of mistake. Interestingly, the same mock draft also has Seattle selecting Texas cornerback Malik Muhammad at pick 64, and that's where things start to make a bit more sense. Muhammad brings length, fluidity, and experience against high-level SEC competition. He's shown strong coverage ability, even if tackling consistency is still developing. More importantly, he fits a need and offers upside in a position group that thrives on competition and development. Pairing a smart first-round pick with someone like Muhammad in the second round could set Seattle up for a much more balanced and effective draft class. But that only works if the first move is the right one. And that's really what this all comes down to. Not whether Jadarian Price is good. Not whether the Seahawks need a running back, but whether this is the right move at the right time with the right value. Because right now, it just doesn't add up. So if the Seahawks are sitting at pick 32, with options on the board at edge, quarterback, or even corner, and a deep running back class still ahead, does it make any sense to go all in on a position that can be addressed later? What do you think the Seahawks should actually do with that 32nd pick? And do you agree that taking a running back there would be a mistake? And this is where the conversation around Malik Muhammad starts to connect directly with what Seattle should actually be trying to build coming out of this draft. Because if you look at the bigger picture, the contrast between the two projected picks tells you everything about the philosophy that should be guiding this front office right now. Muhammad isn't being talked about as a top 10 corner in this class, and that might actually work in Seattle's favor. He's one of those players who quietly checks a lot of boxes without generating massive national hype. Coming out of Texas, playing against elite SEC competition, he's already been tested in ways that translate well to the NFL. He's long, he's fluid in coverage, and his ability to transition in and out of his back pedal gives him a real advantage when matching up against quicker receivers. Now yes, there are areas that need refinement. The tackling consistency isn't perfect, and there are moments where you'd like to see more physical finishing. But what stands out is that he's not afraid of contact, and that matters. Coaches can work with technique. They can improve angles. What's harder to teach is willingness, and Muhammad has shown that he's not shying away from those moments. And here's where it gets interesting for the Seahawks specifically. Imagine Muhammad stepping into a room where he can learn from established contributors and grow into a defined role without immediate pressure to be CB1. That kind of environment is exactly how Seattle has historically developed defensive backs. It's how they maximize value. It's how they turn solid prospects into real contributors. There's also a potential ripple effect here. Adding a player like Muhammad could allow more flexibility in how the secondary is deployed. There's already been discussion about how players like Kobe Bryant, or others in that hybrid role, could shift responsibilities depending on personnel groupings. Bringing in a corner with Muhammad's profile gives the coaching staff more options, more creativity, and more depth in a division where passing attacks are only getting more aggressive. Now take that idea and compare it again to the running back situation. Because while the cornerback room benefits from added versatility and long-term development, the running back position is almost the opposite in terms of roster-building strategy. It's about rotation, durability, and cost efficiency. You don't need to overinvest early when production can be found later. And Seattle already has multiple players who could realistically step into meaningful roles. Kenny McIntosh is still one of the more intriguing names in that group. He didn't get the opportunity to fully showcase what he can do last season, but the explosiveness is there, and there's a real chance he becomes a bigger part of the offense moving forward. Then you look at Emmanuel Wilson, who showed flashes during his time in Green Bay, and George Holani, who has done enough to at least earn a legitimate opportunity in this competition. This isn't a perfect group, but it's far from empty. And when you combine that with the depth of this draft class, it reinforces the same conclusion over and over again. Patience at running back could pay off in a big way. There's also something else that can't be ignored here: the identity of this franchise under John Schneider. Time and time again, Seattle has leaned into value-based drafting. They've found starters outside the first round. They've taken calculated swings at premium positions. And more often than not, they've avoided forcing picks just to fill immediate needs. That's why the idea of taking a running back at 32 feels so out of character, especially when there's a strong possibility that Schneider looks to trade back, accumulate more picks, and attack this class with flexibility. If that scenario plays out, it becomes even more likely that Seattle targets a running back later, while using earlier selections to address positions that are harder to fill. And let's not overlook the broader context of team building here. The Seahawks are not one player away from a Super Bowl. That's not where this roster stands today. This is a team that's still shaping its identity, still building depth, still trying to create a foundation that can compete consistently. When that's your reality, every premium pick becomes even more important. You can't afford to use it on a position where the return on investment is lower compared to others on the board. You need impact. You need positional value. You need players who can influence the game in multiple ways. That's why edge rusher, quarterback, or even cornerback makes so much more sense in that first-round slot. Those are positions that can change the trajectory of your defense or stabilize your future. Those are positions where hitting on a first-round pick actually shifts your ceiling as a team. And that brings us back to the central issue with this mock draft. It's not just about one pick. It's about the philosophy behind it. It's about whether you're building for long-term success or chasing short-term fixes. Because if Seattle plays this the right way, if they stay disciplined, trust the depth of this class, and lean into their strengths as a front office, they could walk away from this draft with multiple impact players at premium positions and still land a running back who produces at a high level. But if they ignore value, if they force a move that doesn't align with how successful teams operate in today's NFL, then it could be a missed opportunity that lingers longer than anyone expects. And that's why this conversation matters right now, before anything is set in stone. Because once draft night arrives, there are no do-overs. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Drop a like if you agree with this breakdown. And click on the video that's on your screen right now, because all the latest Seahawks news and analysis, you'll only find it right here. Go Seahawks!